Chernivtsi, Ukraine, 1988, still part of the vast Soviet Union. You wake up in the morning and discovering your child is completely bald, not thinning, not falling out in patches, gone, all of it, overnight. You go to the doctor. In the hospital corridor, dozens of other parents, their faces etched with the same disbelief and terror. And then you realize it's not just your child. The horrifying realization dawns. It's hundreds of children. What is this? Was this another Chernobyl? A secret experiment? A chemical substance leak? Or something much worse? The Soviet authorities offered only silence, but those who tried to find out the truth, they started to disappear. The first thing doctors noticed, this wasn't typical childhood hair loss. The children were diagnosed with alopecia totalis, a severe form where hair loss isn't gradual, it's sudden, drastic, entire sections vanishing practically overnight. Normally, alopecia like this can have several triggers: severe autoimmune reactions of the body, exposure to powerful toxins, or radiation exposure. But when hundreds of children lose their hair simultaneously across a single city, it's unlikely to be genetics or individual immune responses. It strongly points to an external environmental factor. And crucially, along with the devastating hair loss, many children also showed unexplained chemical burns on their skin. What was it? Silence and panic. Parents were beyond desperate. Panic turned into action. Their first instinct, escape, get their children out of the city. Within weeks, Chernivtsi felt hauntingly empty. Trains and buses overflowed with families fleeing, desperate to save their children from an invisible, terrifying threat. And the official response? Not help, not answers. The city was effectively locked down. The Soviet machine of silence ground into gear. Media outlets trying to report the story. Strict orders. Keep silence. Journalists who defied the order. Fired. Local newspapers. Banned from printing. Parents protesting in the streets. Threatened. Any newspaper that dared mention the epidemic found its entire print run confiscated, disappearing from the newsstands overnight. The official narrative, carefully constructed in the party-controlled press, was deliberately confusing. On November the 5th, 1988, the local paper claimed all enterprises checked, no deviations found. But just 6 days later, November 11th, Moscow's top health official, Minister Chazov, announced a seemingly definitive yet flawed conclusion: chemical intoxication by the heavy metal thallium. It provoked the hair loss. Where did it come from? Perhaps acid rain from industrial regions. Thallium, acid rain. It felt wrong. People knew this wasn't just some freak illness. This was something bigger, something hidden. Whispers and rumors spread like wildfire, far outpacing the official story nobody truly believed. So if not thallium, what was going on? Suspicion naturally turned towards the city's industries. In 1988, Chernivtsi housed several factories capable of handling toxic materials. The prime suspect became the Kvarts plant, a facility producing fiberglass and other industrial components using heavy metals, acids, and volatile chemical reagents. While authorities never confirmed an accident, several red flags emerged. Right around the time the illness appeared, the Kvarts plant was abruptly shut down for repairs. Plant workers, when approached by the few journalists still digging, refused to comment. Months later, several Kvarts employees quietly left Chernivtsi. Their families reportedly avoided the topic entirely. An industrial leak could theoretically explain the chemical burns and even the hair loss. But the theory quickly runs into problems. The biggest question: why only the children? If a major toxic leak contaminated the air or water, adults should have been affected too, especially plant workers and nearby residents. Yet, the dramatic overnight mass hair loss was almost exclusively confined to young children. This strange selectivity casts significant doubt on the industrial accident scenario. And then there's the government's reaction. Standard procedure for an industrial accident, even in the secretive USSR, might involve some level of acknowledgement, cleanup, perhaps evacuation. Instead, the response was total denial, suppression of information, and pressure on anyone asking questions. Why the intense cover-up if it was just a factory accident? The industrial spill theory, while convenient, just didn't fit all the facts. It couldn't explain the speed, the victim's age profile, or the extreme secrecy. So attention turned back to the official explanation Moscow had provided: thallium. Remember Minister Chazov's announcement? Thallium poisoning, possibly delivered by acid rain. Thallium is a potent heavy metal poison, and it does have some dangerous effects. Hair loss is indeed a classic symptom. It attacks the nervous system, causing weakness, tremors, even paralysis. It can be absorbed through water, soil, or air. The acid rain from afar theory provided a convenient external source, absolving local authorities or industry. But this official story collapsed under scrutiny. Wrong timeline. Thallium poisoning is slow. It builds up over weeks. Chernivtsy's children lost their hair overnight. Wrong symptoms. While hair loss matched, most children lacked other key thallium poisoning signs like severe vision problems, nerve pain in the limbs, peripheral neuropathy, or loss of coordination, ataxia. Wrong victims. Thallium doesn't discriminate by age. If it contaminated the environment, why weren't significant numbers of adults also affected? The official thallium story, despite being pushed by Moscow, was full of holes. It didn't match the timeline, the full symptom profile, or the victim demographic. It raised more questions than it answered, feeding the public's distrust. The night Chernivtsi changed forever. Summer, 1988. The city sleeps, but strange sounds pierce the silence. Military trucks on the move, a sharp, chemical hiss of leaking liquid, figures in military uniforms scrambling in the darkness. The next morning, hundreds of children wake up bald. What connects the military activity to the sudden illness? The answer lies in something incredibly dangerous: hydrazine and its derivatives, key components of Soviet rocket fuel, a colorless liquid smelling sharply like ammonia. Hydrazine itself is toxic, but its related compounds, like UDMH, unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine, used extensively in Soviet missiles, are even more treacherous. These aren't just irritants, they are potent neurotoxins. They can trigger severe allergic reactions, and critically, they are known to cause rapid, total hair loss unless the exposure is significant. But this still doesn't answer the most disturbing question. Why were only young children affected so severely and so suddenly? The key might lie in simple physics and the nature of the chemical itself. Hydrazine and its volatile derivatives, when spilled or leaking, tend to evaporate, but crucially, these heavy vapors often stay low to the ground, concentrating within roughly the first meter, about 3 feet, above the surface. Adults might inhale some, but children, due to their shorter stature, would be breathing this toxic air constantly while playing outside, or even sleeping near open windows close to the ground level where the vapors lingered after the nighttime incident. This could explain the devastatingly selective impact. How could such a dangerous substance end up spilled on city streets? The first clues came from those who saw things they weren't supposed to see. Taxi drivers working the late shift reported suspicious military activity. One specifically recalled seeing a military tanker truck on Lukian Kobylistia Street that night. It stopped abruptly. There was an accident. Eyewitness accounts describe soldiers in panic, hastily throwing items from the vehicle. Then, men in full chemical protection suits arrived on the scene. The next day, silence. The witnesses disappeared or were too afraid to talk. In 2019, files from the former KGB archives in the Chernivtsi region were declassified. They confirmed what local scientists suspected back in 1988. The documents revealed traces of hydrazine derivatives were found in environmental samples connected to the incident. Official environmental reports from that time were marked classified. Local doctors were explicitly ordered by authorities to avoid public statements about the true nature of the illness. In the first 2 weeks, about 400 cases of sudden baldness in children were recorded. The authorities declared this a strange, seasonal phenomenon, people began to massively take children out of Chernivtsi. The city was literally closed. Patrols stood at the exits. Information about the poisoning was forbidden to be printed in newspapers. Why the military presence? Why the secrecy? Whispers from inside military circles provided context. In the summer of 1988, the Soviet military was engaged in a massive relocation of highly toxic rocket fuel across the region. This was due to international arms reduction treaties. Components needed to be moved or destroyed. Final evidence: military trail and mass poisoning. This dangerous fuel was transported hastily, cutting corners on safety protocols. It's believed one of these tanker trucks carrying deadly hydrazine compounds had an accident or deliberately dumped its cargo in Chernivtsi that night. Chemical analysis from the time detailed in the archives confirmed hydrazine poisoning as the cause. This wasn't thallium. It wasn't pesticides or a virus. The evidence points overwhelmingly to one conclusion. This disaster was a direct result of military negligence covered up by the state. And while never officially admitted, the truth refuses to stay buried. Hundreds of children went to bed healthy, only to wake up bald. Their terrified parents fled the city, escaping an invisible enemy nobody could explain. Can we truly be sure this won't be repeated?